and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to make one of my very favorite dishes, which is called Dum Aloo. But we're going to make it with a different way, which is similar to what Kashmiri Dum Aloo is. Kashmir is a very nice place to my hometown. It is close to my hometown. So what we're going to do today, first of all, I'm going to tell you what all spices do you need in this recipe and what all you need. And during the whole video, I'll also give you a tip how to make it vegan, because in this recipe, it's completely vegetarian. The only thing in this recipe which is not vegan is the yogurt, but I'll give you a substitute for the yogurt as well. So let's start. For this recipe, we need the spices. You can see on this platter, there are a few spices. I'll explain what they are. This is a fennel seed powder. We need around 3 tablespoons. This is a cumin seed powder. We need around 1 tablespoon. A turmeric powder, 1 tablespoon. Red chilli powder, 1 tablespoon. This is garam masala, 1 tablespoon. Asafoetida, a tiny pinch. And a ginger powder, 3 tablespoons. So the quantity of the ginger powder and the fennel powder has to be exactly the same. This looks a bit more than 3 tablespoons because I have grounded the fennel myself. And one more thing very important about the red chili powder used in this recipe is that this red chili powder is the degi mirch, which we call, or it's Kashmiri chili, because it gives the flavor and the color but not the heat. Okay, and apart from these spices, all we need is some boiled potatoes. Try to find the smallest potatoes possible because we're going to boil them, prick them, and deep fry them. And the last thing we need is the yogurt. Now, for the vegan version of this recipe is, if you can find the soya yogurt or the vegan yogurt, use that. And if you find the coconut cream, that can be a substitute for your yogurt. Make it with the soya yogurt or the vegan yogurt. It will be more delicious. Let's get started with this recipe. I said that we'll get started with the recipe. I have already boiled these potatoes in water with some salt so that potatoes are already semi-boiled. The very important point for this recipe is I'm going to show you right now. What we're going to do, we're going to poke these potatoes and fry them in the oil. Poke these potatoes, what we're going to do, we're going to take the boiled potatoes and a fork and start poking them on every side like this. Make sure you poke every side of this potato. If you have a toothpick, you can poke with it. If you don't have a toothpick, poke it with a fork. If you have a chopstick and you like big holes, poke it with that. But I would say poke with the fork because it's going to make nice small holes into it. And this helps the potatoes to absorb all the curry which we're going to create. It's not basically a very runny curry. It's very semi-thick, not too thick. We generally eat them with just plain boiled rice. I will give you a tip to boil the rice, which goes really well with these potatoes, so you can enjoy it in an authentic way. Now that we have already poked the potatoes, what we're going to do, we're going to fry them. Make sure the oil is hot. Be very careful because the potatoes will have some water in it. So it's going to... So once these are golden from the outside, that's when we are going to take them out. Just turn the heat down a bit so that they can fry nicely from inside as well. So once we'll put them in a curry, it will be really nice and soft and you can enjoy them. On other hand side, while these are frying, I'll show you a very simple trick to make the paste for this curry. Because this curry does not have any base of tomato, ginger, garlic, or onion, so I'm going to mix all the spices into it, but I'm going to leave the asafoetida aside. So let's do it. We're going to put everything together. Well, I'm just going to use my hands because they're going to be nice and clean. And yes, there you go. This is one of the quickest, most easiest, and the most delicious recipes. This is basically the version of my mother's recipe. She used to make it like this, and I bet the day she will make it, I can smell the dum aloo in the entire house. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just use a little bit of water and mix the spices. Once you put them in the water and mix them together, you can already smell them. They smell really nice because they are all mild spices. Like, there's no heat in it. We are not using very pungent spices. We are just using fennel, cumin, ginger powder, and red chili powder and turmeric. That's it. And also on top of that, we're using the red chili powder, which is not the hotter version of the chili. It's just the color and the flavor. So you see, it's a nice and thick paste. I've already put my pot on. Let me just show you how we're going to make this curry now. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to add some oil. If you have a mustard oil, I would recommend to use the mustard oil in this recipe. And but there will be one particular thing I would recommend not to use is the coconut oil. Use the mustard oil, rice bran oil, or soya oil, whichever you prefer, anything apart from the coconut oil, because the coconut oil is going to give it a bit of a coconut flavor, that which we don't want. So to start off the recipe, what I'm going to do, make sure the pot is big enough and with a depth. The second very good tip about this recipe is make sure the oil is not too hot. Okay, so I'm just going to put some cumin seeds in it. It's not too many, it's very little. I'm just going to put them in and leave them in it for a bit. On the other side, I can show you my potatoes. They are, wow, they're nice and golden. So I'm just going to take them out in a plate. I used to make this recipe a lot, and when I was working with a few of my really best friends, they used to love this recipe. And trust me, if you make it, this recipe will be worth taking to the office. Have a look at this golden color, how nice they look. Now I'm just going to keep them aside, and I'm going to put the rest of the potatoes back in the oil. There we go. Now we'll move to this side of the recipe. Yes. You can see, if you come a foot closer, you can see the cumins, they just started to cook. Now is the right time to put this paste which we made. I have put the paste. This won't do any sizzle or anything. You won't hear any sound, but this is exactly the temperature of the heat that we need for this recipe. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to stir it. Because we already have added some water into the spices, you would not be required to add any more water. Add no water, at least at this stage. So now, because this is why we use a normal temperature oil, not too hot oil, so that the flavor of the spices remains in this curry. They won't fly away with the steam once you put them in, or they won't go away with the sizzle. So as you can see, this is already looking really thick. It's just the spices and the oil and the little bit of the water which I added while making this paste. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add asafoetida, which was left, and I'm going to use a little bit of the water to just mix these spices again. Now, remember I said that I'll give you a tip, which I've already given you, about making this recipe a vegan recipe, because as you have seen, there is nothing apart from the yogurt in this recipe's ingredient which is not vegan. But if you would like to make this recipe a vegan recipe, or would like to make this dum aloo in a vegan form, what you can use is the soya yogurt. I have seen in supermarkets, it's easily available, the vegan yogurt. I think it's soya based or coconut based. Whichever vegan yogurt you can find, you can easily use into this recipe instead of the yogurt. You see, it's already started leaving the oil. We can see this spices looking really, really nice. A little bit of water each time. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add my yogurt into this curry. I have put this yogurt in a cheesecloth and hung it for like at least 20 minutes. So it's nice and thick. You can see how thick the yogurt is. So there we go. Just mix it really well. My mother used to use very little bit of the yogurt, but I like to use it more. It's just my personal preference. If you don't want to use much thicker curry, don't use too much yogurt. If you like thick curry or you like a little bit runny, use less yogurt and more water, but this is how I make. I would recommend to use the yogurt according to your taste. Until now, we haven't added any salt into this recipe, so I'm just going to add some salt into this recipe now. I'm very used to using the spices with my hand, not the measuring spoons. So I'm just going to use how I would normally use the spices. Okay. So we will let it cook for some time, and we'll just have a look at my potatoes now. How they're looking. They're still cooking. Let's have a bit return to them. Nice. Back in my hometown, during the weddings, this will be one of the most common dish that we'll make, and they go really well with rice. I've already prepared the rice. I'll show you at the end. And yes, I was talking about a quick tip how to prepare rice. I know one of my friends has always asked me, whenever you bring rice to work, they are so fluffy and so nice and so yummy. They are not stuck together. What I do, I soak the rice in water for at least 1 to 2 hours prior making, and then I'll make them in exactly the same bigger pot. I'll fill up the water up till here, let it boil. When you can see water boiling, drain the rice from the soaked water, put it in and wait until it's cooked, and then you have to strain the rice from the water, and they will be really fluffy and nice. That's how the rice should be if you want to have it with this recipe. So now you can see this is turning really good. You can see all the color from that Kashmiri chili that we used. I would normally use a whole red dry chilies in this recipe, but because I have a son who likes to eat this recipe as well, so I don't use much chilies. That's why I switched the chili powder to the Kashmiri chili powder, or degi mirch that we call, so that it gives you a nice color, just not the hotness, but it gives you the flavor of the chili. So what we're going to do, we're just going to wait for it to boil, because we have to cook the yogurt. And if you're using the vegan yogurt, make sure it's nicely cooked. I know you can see a lot of oil on top, but this recipe does include lots of oil. So make sure that this is not a healthy recipe if you are very diet conscious, but it's definitely very yummy. Okay, so we're just going to wait for this to boil. Once it has 2 to 3 boils, we're going to add the potatoes and let it cook for some time. So now, if you look closer, sorry for all the steam coming out here. If you look closer, this looks really nice in color. Have a look at this. Yes. And now, because it's all been boiled, we're going to put our potatoes in it. Yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention in the very beginning of this recipe, that potatoes should be with the skin on. We're not going to peel them. You boil them with the skin on. Just wash them really nicely and make sure there is no dirt left. Boil them with the skin on, fry them with the skin on, and put in this curry with the skin on. So at this stage, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a little bit more water onto it, just like that. And I'm going to close this on a low flame. We'll let it cook for around 15 to 20 minutes on a low heat. So the word dum means it has to be cooked within the steam. So that's what we're going to do here. Make sure it's in a deep pot. As I mentioned in the very beginning, it has to be in the deep pot so that the potatoes can get soaked in that amazing curry. Once that is ready, I'll show you what we're going to eat it with. So now you can see how amazing this curry looks, right? So what we're going to do now, we're going to plate this curry with some rice, and I'll show you what sort of rice I was talking about. So see, these were the rice which I was talking about, and this is how I make them. I boil them in a large pot of water, and if you see how separated these rice are, you can see each grain, and when you will eat them with this curry, they will taste amazing. So now the last part is why I'm plating this like this, because traditionally we would eat this with our hands like this on top and use a little bit of the curry. Look how amazing this looks. Now for the final touch, what I'm going to do, I'm going to grind some cumin. It's just the normal cumin. I'm going to grind some of this and put it on top here. That's it. And there we have Kashmiri Dum Aloo with plain rice. Please make this recipe, as I've made this with yogurt, I know, but do give it a try with the vegan yogurt, and please do leave a comment and let us know how this recipe is, how it tastes, and how it turned out after you made it. And please do not forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you for watching SS Kitchen. See you later.